There you go, Steve. Hello, and welcome to this session. I'm Katie Razzall, taking a little break from reporting controversies at the BBC. Delighted to be here, and very delighted to be here with Steve Knight. Woohoo! Exactly. I mean, you know, who could follow Tim Davie? Obviously, Steve Knight can. Internationally known for Peaky Blinders, that global hit that also spawned some rather fabulous trends in hairdressing. Steve is one of the UK's most known and most lauded screenwriters. He's got a CBE, he's got endless industry awards. And he started off, born in Birmingham. My understanding is, I think the famous story goes that when you first thought about your career, mainly you were just thinking, I want to do a job that involves not getting wet, so making sure I'm indoors. You've done pretty well since then, not getting wet. And now are a studio mogul. You've got your own studio just opened, or recently opened, called Digbeth Lock. So we've got a lot to talk about today. One of the things I wanted to start with, based on the fact that this conference is about creative edge, is I was talking to somebody, an industry insider yesterday about you, and they said he's amazing, he's successful, and he's still hungry. And you've been writing for 20 plus years, and you still have that hunger, they said. Is that true, first of all? And is that what gives you the creative edge? Is that what drives your creativity?
It's not really hunger for a consequence of the work. It's actually, I can't not do it. And I don't want to encourage people not to pay me for doing it, but I would do it anyway.
You'd do it for free.
Yeah, and I mean, if an idea comes, or an idea is offered, you know, at first there's a few stumbles, but then once you're in it, you're in it. And for me, it's completely obsessive. So, you know, I've shaved twice in the same morning. I've had 2 showers. I can't drive because it's too, you know, you're too much into the thing.
And where does it come from? Where does the first idea come from?
I don't know. I mean, I've said it before, but I compare it to dreaming, actually. And everybody dreams, and everybody has these things, the pieces of theatre, you know, in their head, and the plot is all over the place. The plot is madness, but the characters are usually spot on. So they're usually based on people you know or people you've met, and they never.
Does it start with a character?
For me, it does. Yeah. I mean, no one ever in a dream. No one ever walks in and does a terrible line of exposition. You know. It's always, so some part of your brain is able to do that. And what I try to do is open up to that, especially when I'm at the keyboard, which is when it's important, and just see what comes and let it go, let it happen. And then, because you can, the thing is, you can read it back and you can get rid of it.
So which character came to you first in Peaky Blinders then?
It was Tommy. I mean, I nearly wrote it as a novel once, ages ago. This is the early 80s, because the stories were always, I always had the stories because they were told to me by my parents, who sort of lived through that time and whose relatives were bookmakers, illegal bookmakers, and were known as Peaky Blinders. So the stories are in there, and the main thing, I suppose, younger brother and older brother, but the younger brother's in charge was the first thing.
Right. And is it right, am I right to say it didn't take off straight away? It wasn't necessarily something that you knew was going to work on paper?
No, absolutely not. I mean, you know, it's gangsters in Birmingham in the 1920s. You don't think.
Sounds great to me. Maybe
well,
you should make
I
a
think
program
it sort
about
of does now. Maybe that, but at the time it was quite obscure, really. And what I decided to do was because these stories were told to me when I was a kid, and my parents experienced these things when they were kids. So it's the way a kid looks at stuff. Like, everything's big, and the horses are beautiful, and the interior of the pub is amazing. And I decided to try and keep that mythology, double mythology, and make everything like a Western. And I didn't know if that would work. You know, at first people laughed at the accents and all sorts of stuff, you know, that you get, and you just have to think, well, it doesn't matter, and just keep going. And then people started to show me photos of bars in, you know, Buenos Aires or somewhere, and there was a Peaky stuff, and you just think, wow, what's happening? You know, it was quite a shock, really.
And why do you think it was? When I was listening, I'm not sure if you were here then, but Ted Sarandos was talking about how local stories can go global. Is that, what do you think it was about Peaky Blinders that has made it such an international success?
I mean, I'm not sure there's such a thing as a story that isn't local, because if it's set in Chicago, it's still local. It's set in New York, it's, you know, you could say it's local. I don't really like that word local anyway, because, you know, the emotions and the upsets and the jealousy and the passion of someone in Rotherham is the same as the upset and passion of someone anywhere else in the world. And so I think if you can just depict that honestly, then other people will recognise it, no matter where the caption says where it's set, it doesn't matter.
And did you ever think, was TV always the medium you wanted for it and the medium that you preferred? Did you ever think, I know you are making the Peaky film, about to start filming, I think,
yeah.
but was it always TV that drove you?
No, I started off writing it as a novel, because I was writing novels at the time. And then I think, I can't remember who it was, but I presented a treatment to Channel 4 in 1980 something. And I'm glad it didn't happen because, no, not because of Channel 4, because of the...
Alex is up next, watch it.
No, I mean, I chose Channel 4 because, you know, that was a good place to go, but the technology wasn't right to actually depict a period drama, you know, like that properly. So then I went off and started making movies, and that was great. And then television started to sort of emerge again as a thing. And someone said to me, have you got any television ideas? So I presented that because I actually had it in my drawer.
So your tip then for people who want to follow in your footsteps or want to work in the creative industries, sounds to me like you don't need that. You haven't really got a tip for how to do it because you just do it. Or maybe that's the tip.
No, but the tip perhaps is, first of all, you finish it. It's really important because, you know, it's very tempting to start something and go off it. But just finish the thing. And also, Leonard Cohen said, all you need to be a writer is arrogance and inexperience. And I think it's so true. I mean, arrogance you need, but inexperience, in other words, you don't know what you shouldn't be doing.
Okay.
And it's good to not find out.
And do you think you're still like that now?
I hope so.
You must have learned things along the way.
I try not to. I really do try not to. No, I mean, I try not to, you know, I don't watch stuff and don't read stuff.
What, you mean you don't watch yourself back, or you don't?
No, anything.
Well, you just don't want to know anything.
I mean, there's a story. Look,
you probably haven't got time because all you're doing is having these characters come in your head and you have to write it down.
There's a story because, you know, Game of Thrones is massive and everybody's watching it. And we were casting Peaky and somebody said, putting forward this actor for the character. And all of the time that Game of Thrones was on, my 10-year-old son was coming up and saying, can I have the box set for Christmas? And I go, yeah, because I assumed it was a kid's show. Because it was Game of Thrones, and, you know, I'd seen clips of dragons and things. So
he went into his bedroom and never reappeared.
And this producer said, yeah, he plays the brothel keeper. I said, what are you talking about? It's a kid's show. I mean, that's just an illustration of me not learning anything, I suppose.
So is that what happens when you're casting? When you were casting for the new film, the Peaky Blinders film, did you not know any of the people they were putting up? Or did you
oh, no, I mean...
You've heard of this guy called Killian?
Oh, yeah.
He's quite good.
Yeah, no, I mean, fortunately for us, the movie, the cast is, everybody knows, you know.
Yeah.
So it's an incredible cast. I'm not sure how many have been announced, but it's quite mind-blowing who we've got, which is great.
Fantastic. And we were just talking earlier, and I think you have already met the Secretary of State. She's here later.
Fantastic.
But in terms of what you know, we heard what Tim Davie thinks, we heard earlier in the panels. What's your message to this new government? How confident, are you feeling optimistic about creative industries here, and what are you saying to the government?
Very optimistic because, you know, it's like the Olympics where you've got the British cyclists are really good, so invest in the cyclists and you win things, you know. We're really good at this. Just by chance, we're very, very good at making television, making films. Got great writers, actors, talent, crew. So we should invest in it, not because it's nice or because it's a good thing to do, but because it makes a lot of money for the country. And not only that, probably even more important, this isn't making washing machines, nothing wrong with making washing machines, but this is making stuff that then goes out into the world and becomes how the world sees us. That's exactly what it is, because most people in the world don't come here. They see it through what we're putting on the TV, and the stuff we're putting on the TV is incredibly good. And I agree with Tim about BBC News and all of that. We've got to be so careful with this precious thing, you know, the precious thing, the BBC, but also the precious thing of what we're able to do, and not let it get defined from outside. We're just good at this. So in my opinion, what the government should be doing is, investing money in the industry, so making sure that, you know, this continues, that people continue to choose the UK, keep the tax break, please. And if I would then, I've been saying this for ages, is that you could have a regional variation on the tax break. So you could, it's 20%, you could have 21% in a particular area. People would howl a bit about that, and it could be temporary, but what you could do is stimulate the industry in particular regions by increasing that tax break by a bit, because we all know if a producer sees 22%, not 20%, he'll go there. I've got an idea in Digbeth where we're building affordable we're building some housing on one of the zones of the studio, and we're obliged to build 35% affordable, which is great, that's fine. What we could do is say, because the housing is so near to the studio, that some of that affordable housing is allocated to people who work in our industry, because a lot of them don't earn a lot of money. And so what we're saying is, what we're doing with this industry, we're not landing it like a spaceship and putting barbed wire around it. We're actually making it part of the community, not again because it's a good thing to do, but because it's so obviously economically the right thing to do. You know, a car factory doesn't open up and doesn't use the people around to work in it. We must skill up the people who are in our environment, have them walk and cycle to work, have a kind of loyalty to the region, but that doesn't make it regional. You know, we make international stuff as well. But the important thing is the way people see our country is via our industry mostly. And so if we start to chip away at that, we're chipping away at what people think of us, of our industry. And as Tim said, other countries who we may not feel are quite as honourably motivated are increasing the amount of money that they are putting into their international image, and it's really important. So it's not just about making, you know, drama and stories, really.
And are you finding, because obviously what we understand, you know, you've just opened this studio. I've talked to other people trying to open studios who say they have issues with planning, and one quote from a councillor who said, well, hold on, there's too much studio space already. The TV industry, the film industry in the UK has hit its peak. It's on the way down now. This has all gone wrong. We don't need any more studios. In terms of financing, I don't mean of Digbeth Lock, but generally, are you finding, you're clearly at the top of your game, are you finding that money is tight in terms of dramas? Are budgets going down for you or up for you? Can you fight for the money?
I mean, me personally, you know, there's a trajectory because of the work you've done, but in general, yeah, I mean, you know, it's an industry the same as any other, so it's prone to the changes in the general economy, and you've got to expect that. In terms of overcapacity of studios, I think at the moment, yes, but you don't then knock them all down, because when things pick up again, it'll be the same as it was before. And
do you feel there's a route to picking up? I've heard this phrase, survive till 25. Lots of my friends are not working at the moment. It's really tough.
Yeah.
Is it going to get better?
It's going to get better if we, first of all, if the government, it's not down to the government, actually, that's not true. It will get better if we continue to have confidence in what we're doing and continue to come up with stuff that people all over the world want to see. So it will get better for us here. And it's also, we need to ensure that people in this country know that this is a career that they can have and sustain. In order to do that, all of us, BBC, the streamers, everybody, and I know Netflix are doing this and others are doing this, is invest in training and skills, and we're doing that in Digbeth in very specific ways, of making this, in other words, making it an industry you can't pull out because the roots are too deep. You can't just get rid of it. You know, it's got to stay there. And it's fun as well, you know. This is a fun industry to be in. It's hard work, but it's great.
Has it surprised you how long it's taken to get that project off the ground? You know, we're quite a small country, and yet everything is so focused on London and the area around it.
It is, but again, I always think there's no point in trying to appeal to the idea that it would be a nice or good thing to do. because that's sort of pointless. I think what you need to do is do it, and do it in such a way that the use of it is unavoidable. You know, the appeal of it is so strong that everybody's going to do it. So, like in our case at Digbeth, we're near to the city centre. We're right next to HS2. But also, I want to make it, but as people who work in the industry know, it's physically really difficult to make anything, to get stuff made. It's long hours, it's brutal work. We want to try and make this an environment where where it's acknowledged that that's the case, where they can have, leisure, and they can have, physical comfort, if you like, and they're not getting into a car at 2 o'clock in the morning, going to a little hotel and then coming back again. That we try and put everything on the campus so that people can go in and feel that they're in a truly creative environment with big productions and small productions feeding into each other. And we've got the National Youth Theatre moving in. We've got the Royal Shakespeare Company coming. We want to do theatre. We want to do the arts. We want to do all of that because I think you build a studio and then cut the ribbon and artists come in. It's not like, I think it's better that here's this beautiful Victorian architecture that's been standing derelict for 30 years, and fantastic warehouses, and it's just sitting there. And I'm standing there looking at the rotunda, and there's mature blackberry bushes blowing. They've been there for 35 years, otherwise they wouldn't be in that condition. And you just think, we can do something with this. And our industry can go into those places. No one else wants a great big shed with no columns. No one else wants it, and it's leaking. And outside of it is a great big slab of concrete. No one else wants that, but we do. That's gold dust to us. So the idea that we can actually be a very fitting catalyst for change in challenged areas, not just because it's good, but because actually what's there is what we want. And so now, like the banana warehouse has been sitting there on the canal side, like it's sort of an old lady falling apart, and it's now MasterChef.
And there's a lot of conversation at Edinburgh this year about the C word, by which I mean class. Does it worry you that TV is dominated by more privileged people, and is part of what you're doing an effort to change that?
It's not a direct effort to change it, as if to say I will have achieved it if it happens, because I don't think that's the way it goes. But my background, obviously, working class background, and all of that's fine. It's not like a flag that you have to wave, really. But
people keep asking you to wave it, though, don't they?
Well, that's fine. I don't care. But the point being that if you don't tell the stories of 70% of the population of the country, you're missing at least 70% of the stories. I remember when I did Dirty Pretty Things, and back then, the fact that it was a story of an asylum seeker from Nigeria was quite a thing. But the point I made was, if you get a minicab in London, I'm pretty sure the story of the driver will be more interesting than the story of the passenger. Yeah. And so why not tell the story of the driver? It's not because you're being nice, but because it's a better story. And that's what writers should be doing. They should be looking for that. And in terms of class, if you decide not to tell stories about the working class, why? I don't get it.
Do you ever worry that you're going to come to the end of your store of ideas, or do you?
No,
you don't worry. I don't think you are either, based on having met you about 10 minutes before we started this. I don't think you are either. You are about to start filming Peaky Blinders. The film.
Yeah.
Can you tell us anything about it? It's top secret. Nothing.
It's got a great. I think we've announced Rebecca Ferguson. We've announced Barry Keoghan in the cast. We've got some more announcements to come. And the story is, well, I can tell you it's set in the Second World War, and it's really good.
Okay, that's good. And do you ever worry, do you ever think, in terms of your creative arc, do you go through a bit of thinking, oh God, I think this is going to be awful? Or do you always have, How does the arc go for you?
It very many stages. When it's on the screen as a script, I've got more confidence in it. But and I've learned now, again, Dirty Pretty Things, I remember it was the first movie that I'd written, and there was an assembly or a rough cut, I think, and we went to see it, and Stephen Frears, the brilliant director, invited some opinion formers to come and watch it, and I'm in the darkened rooms. First time I've seen it. Bear in mind, I've done television, but not film, and I look at it and watch it, and I think, okay, I'm going to have to change my career. this is so awful. This is so bad. And
Why?
but the reason was, it didn't look like what was in my head. It was different, but didn't realise that different can be better different. Not always, just because it's different doesn't mean it's worth. And Nick Hornby was sitting behind me, and the lights went up, and he either said, "I'm misty-eyed" or "I'm mystified."
Did you ever find out?
No, and I thought my whole career now depends on what he just said.
I think he must have said misty-eyed then. Was that the biggest risk? What do you think the biggest risk you've ever taken in your career is, and did it pay off?
The studio, I think.
Right. We don't know if it's paid off yet, because
No,
you've
we
got
don't.
a
We
massive
certainly
Peaky
don't.
Blinders film going on there and lots of other stuff too, so.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be all right, I think.
What about in your writing career, your biggest risk?
Serenity, which everybody hated.
Why did you love it and people hated it?
Well, it was one of the. If no one else will direct it, I direct it, because no one else will go. And so, I mean, there's good and bad in that. Serenity, people didn't like. Locke was another one that nobody wanted, and I did that. So, if I direct something, it's a risk in that everything else has to shut down for a year. It's really hard work. Your feet fall apart, and it's just horrible food, and you have to commit to that for a bit, just because you think it should get made and no one else will do it.
Right. And I can't end, because we are sadly nearly reaching the end. I can't end because it's in my mind, and also because of the conversation with Tim Davey earlier. In my world, anyone who watches BBC News will know I spend a fair bit of time reporting on media scandals, often involving talent. You interact with a lot of talent. Do you think UK TV and the UK creative industries have a culture problem when it comes to managing power imbalances?
First of all, the word talent, I think, causes problems.
I hate that word.
Because, what you're saying is that the people on screen, or the people who are acting, are the talent, and the other people are the people who are supporting the talent.
And they're often treated better, aren't they?
We create our own monsters. We do.
Yeah.
I'm talking about in the film industry of the actors are treated in a very particular way. They're brilliant, and they're fragile, and their craft is a miracle. But I think we have to, but not only not draw a circle around so-called talent. I'm not saying so-called because they're not talented, but that title. But also drawing a circle around the media is people in our industry, everybody knows who they are. Everybody sees them every day. In other industries, nobody knows who they are. So it's the pressure is much greater on people.
And do you have a particular approach to managing that? I mean, if you saw someone, I don't know, do you call out bad behaviour if you see it, or how do you deal with it?
It's very difficult the bad behaviour, like taking advantage of one's position to slow things down in a production, I think is unforgivable. Bad behaviour in terms of good and bad and morality, it's not my thing. It's not my position to pass comment on that unless it's a specific thing in a specific environment. I think he said, everybody should do this. It isn't going to work.
We've got 1 minute left, and we haven't talked about loads of your amazing projects, including Guinness, all sorts of things. What's the thing you're most excited about, apart from this conversation in front of these amazing people? What's the thing you're most excited about? Put the studio aside for a minute.
Guinness is, I'm calling it the crown with beer, which is basically the Guinness family and the amazing people who are the Guinness family, starting in 1868, telling that story of that dynasty, which is really exciting. We've got a fantastic cast of people, and that's for Netflix.
You just have endless emails of people, or calls from people saying, "Can you do this? Can you do this? Can you do this?" Are you?
Yeah, I don't get the calls, but yeah, they come to other people. But Maria, which Pablo Larraín and Angelina Jolie movie, which at Venice, if they like it, they stand up and applaud forever, and it's fantastic. So that's great. And tonight I'm going up to Liverpool for the opening night of the second tour of the Peaky Blinders ballet, which I wrote a ballet, which is just beyond. I'm not saying that like, isn't it great? It's like odd. And
do you know anything about ballet?
Nothing at all.
Brilliant. Sounds like you're the right guy for anything. We'll put you to something else very soon. Thank you so much, Steve Knight. It's very sad, but we've run out of time. Thank you.